Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I got papers. I was like, maybe I need to grab my files so we can chat. So we can chat about 3508 and whatever else we need to. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say hi. Hi to everybody who is here. Thanks for joining. I got a new webcam, so I'm like, hey, this is kind of nice because I can do YouTube Live pretty much directly. Can you guys hear me okay? Can I get like a yes, everything sounds okay? Somebody put it in the comments. Make sure that I'm not just talking with no good sound. So today is really just going to be all about a Q&A session. Okay, good. All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, so today's just a Q&A session, and I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can. So if you have some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we will try to do what we can here. Kind of just recently, if you've been watching the channel, I've been trying to post videos on the forgiveness applications, explaining the forgiveness applications, and then what documentation you need for the different applications, because I really was trying to think about how to like logically break it down for people, and it really came down to the requirements are different based on the form that you use. So that's how it ends up kind of breaking out, and hopefully those are helpful, and we can definitely go over any documentation questions that you guys are having. And then I also just recently put up, the latest one was about, how to choose, or the latest two, how to choose which forgiveness application you can qualify for, and then FTE safe harbor stuff. So if you are using a full 3508 form, I highly recommend you going through the process of looking at the FTE video, because that's going to give you really, it's going to explain safe harbor, who can qualify for safe harbor, and then it's also going to, if you can't qualify for any of the safe harbors, then how you can still not get any reduction of your PPP because of headcount loss, because they have a lot of exemptions that you can take advantage of. So definitely check out those videos. And then I'd say I've got a couple coming out soon, just kind of lots of little clips that are going to be coming out, and so you're going to see those probably starting next week. I'm going to do kind of more regular publishing of those, because they're just little like mini clips, like 2 to 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that. So just little quick bites of information. Let's see. Okay, let's get into Q&A. So the first one, Bob, you were asking about tax implications of PPP loans on nonprofit church organizations. Oh, what do I do with my coffee? I take my coffee out here. Oh well. Yes, I'm drinking coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I went to grab it and it wasn't there. So Bob is saying he has a PPP loan below $50,000 and normally only payroll taxes to the IRS. So Bob, I don't deal with a lot of nonprofits, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think from a taxability standpoint, you're still going to be in a situation where those expenses that you get forgiven for are not tax deductible expenses. So I think you're still going to have to remove those expenses off of your, the expenses that you're claiming for the tax return. As far as I can understand, that's what I was doing a little bit of research, because I saw your question before we popped up here, and I think you're still going to treat it very much similarly. So to not taxable organizations. Now, I don't know, of that $50,000, is that all payroll costs? If so, that means essentially you would just take those payroll costs out of your, deductible expenses for the purposes of taxes. So if I find out anything else more specifically around nonprofits, I will definitely do a video. I'm just not really in that world very much, and so yeah, I don't have as much guidance on that. All right, and then honestly, a lot of the documentation for PPP is not nonprofit specific. So especially like around the IRS rules around that, I haven't seen any specific guidance on that piece. Okay, the next question is, if I'm submitting 3508S form and my payroll will not reach 60% of the loan, how do operating expenses get calculated? Are they reduced proportionally? Okay, I'm going to use my calculator to explain this. So let's say, okay, so you got a loan, let's say you got a loan of $40,000 and you only spent 20,000 on payroll. Okay, so that would be 50%. So if you spent 20,000 on payroll, you would figure out how much you can use on other non-payroll costs by dividing that 20 by 0.6. Okay, so if you divide 20 by 0.6, that means you get 30,333, and then you're going to back out that 20 that you already spent on payroll, and so then you can spend 13,333 on other expenses. Oh, and here we go. Hey, babe. This is my life. Oh, shout out to working parents right now. There was just a saber-toothed tiger that ran through my office. Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. So anyway, hi, Mary. All right, so yeah, if you used less than the dollar amount, less than 60%, then you can still use a proportion for non-payroll costs, okay? So that's what I just calculated for you. So essentially, in that situation that I just gave, $40,000 PPP loan, 20,000 of it was spent on payroll. You can spend or get maximum forgiveness up to 33,333. Okay. Hopefully that answers it. If you want to put the actual number in there, I don't know if that's like too personal, but if you want to put the number in there, I'll tell you exactly how much there. But yes, it does get reduced proportionally. I have a 1099 employee, but as far as I understand, I cannot include her in payroll. Yeah, if you are giving somebody a 1099, that means they're an independent contractor, and so they cannot be included for the purposes of PPP forgiveness. So they cannot be included. Okay. Bob says planning for the 3508S. Yeah, sounds right, because Bob has a loan less than $50,000. All right, Amy says, if you choose the 24-week period and run out of loan proceeds at 12 weeks, can you just submit the payroll for the 12-week period? Yes. So Amy, you can submit expenses just kind of up to or a little bit over what your PPP amount was. So I've seen some people like want to include the whole 24 weeks of payroll, but they had a rule that said you can go ahead and apply for forgiveness even like by the time the money is spent. So a lot of us weren't able to apply for forgiveness that quickly because a lot of our banks weren't open. But that happened a lot where, you know, maybe people just needed 1 or 2 extra weeks in order to spend all of their money, and then it was gone. So yes, Amy, you can go ahead and just include enough payroll expense to cover, you know, how much you're asking for forgiveness for. And what I'm seeing in those situations too is that you can usually have 100% of your PPP just on payroll costs in that situation, because you are now stretching. You're essentially like taking what should have covered 2.5 months of payroll, and now you're making it you have 24 weeks to spend it. So yeah, it's totally fine to just include those 12 weeks. And remember, Amy, too, like you don't have to include any non-payroll costs. So if you could stretch it out and, you know, maybe the 12 weeks is 100% of your loan. If you want to put a comment in there, that's fine. Okay. Bob says, all my PP loan expenses are payroll. Yeah. So Bob, I think you have to back those out of your P&L. I don't think you can include those as deductible expenses. because I haven't seen that tax rule be treated differently for nonprofits. So that's my gut. I would have to do more research specifically to figure out like exactly what and see if there's any other opinions on that. Okay, Benjamin just wanted to pop in and say he says thank you. Yes, PPP loan forgiveness. Yay, love it. Success. Yeah, you guys, if you're getting your loans forgiven, tell me. I absolutely love hearing that. I got a LinkedIn message from somebody recently, somebody who watches all my videos, and he was like, oh, my loan got forgiven. And I was like, that is so much fun. Like, that gives me so much joy to know that you guys are getting these loans forgiven and that you're through the process and this is off your plate. So I'm just excited for you, and share the wins, like this has been a hard year. It's been a really hard year for a lot of people. So like, if we can celebrate wins together, I am all for that. But yeah, no, I'm happy to provide this information and help as many people as possible. Okay. Our business has been mandated to close. Okay, our business has been mandated to close since March. Do I only have until the end of 2020 to use my PPP on payroll? Yeah. So whenever you got your money, I don't know exactly. It's a sand joke. I don't know what name to use. You have 24 weeks from the date you got your loan. 24 weeks from the date you got your loan. So it's about 6 months. So probably you should have spent it by now. I don't know when you actually got your loan. If you want to put in the date of disbursement, that is there. But I would definitely, okay, you got the loan in April. So yeah, we're looking at, you probably are over your 24-week period now. Yes, you can use it on payroll, and that needs to be up to 60% of the loan, and then up to 40% can be used for other things. But yeah, you were the one that we were talking about the calculation above. Yeah, so if you were not able to spend 60% of the loan on payroll at that point, it looks like you might be looking at some, potential reduced forgivable amount for the loan. But yeah, if you wanted to go into any specifics, we could definitely do that. Okay, Amy, yes it is. I have a big bank insisting that I have to go the full 24 weeks, but my loan proceeds run out at 12 weeks. I mean, Amy, they don't have, like, if they read all the SBA guidance, they'd realize that that is not actually true. You don't have to wait until the end of your 24 weeks to apply for forgiveness. But, ultimately these banks, because they're the loan holders, they can kind of push in certain places. So there's no rush for you, except for probably just wanting to get it off your plate, which I totally understand. But it is one of those kind of annoying things, honestly, that the banks are being a little bit, like, they kind of will open their portals when they want to, and they'll kind of decide when they're taking applications and when they're not taking applications. But you do have 10 weeks after the end of your covered period to apply, 10 months after the end of your covered period to apply for forgiveness. So you've got some time. I'm sorry that they're being like that. I saw Chase Bank is not opening their for loans under 50,000. I think they said they were waiting until January to even open up those applications. So you won't be the only one who gets kind of pushed back on. Oh, Benjamin, that makes me so happy. I am glad that the videos were helpful. Okay, and then in April, okay. So Ben asks, guessing since I am a sole owner, LLC, basically a sole proprietor in the eyes of the IRS, I should plan on paying tax in 2021 on the PPP amount. Okay, so this has been a confusing thing to me, and I've talked to other CPAs about this. Sole proprietors, so the IRS has said that any expenses that are forgiven or you reasonably expect them to be forgiven as of the end of the year are not going to be able to be deducted for PPP purposes. We know that, right? But the weird thing about sole proprietors is that they were using the net profit from last year to calculate your PPP loan amount and your PPP forgiveness. So the CPAs that I have talked to have said sole proprietors are not getting taxed on the PPP because it's not like you're taking out deductible expenses. Now, if you had a little bit of your net profit from last year and you had some rent that you were claiming and maybe some other business expenses that you were claiming to get forgiveness for the PPP, then you would have to take out those off of your P&L, so you would have a higher profit. But sole proprietors, if you're just using your net profit amount, you're not getting taxed on that, because then it would transfer it back into taxable income, kind of. And that's not, like, we know that the PPP is not taxable income. So I think, Benjamin, you're off the hook for taxes on this. Now, the IRS could come back and say, oh, wait, we didn't think about sole proprietors, which I know they did, because now their original rule came out in May of this year, and then they just recently doubled down on their tax opinion in November. So they have not specifically mentioned any kind of taxability on the PPP loan for the sole proprietors who are getting some of that net profit amount forgiven. So this is kind of what I'm seeing, and what I'm hearing other CPAs say is that it's kind of a net benefit for the sole proprietors that other entities are not getting. So yay. Yay for you, and yay for lots of sole proprietors. I mean, it is benefiting the smaller businesses. So like the really big ones that are, getting these $4 million loans and whatnot, none of them are sole proprietors. So I think they kind of understood too that, like, in the big picture of things, it's not a big amount for the SBA or for the IRS. So I guess they're just seeing it as kind of like a little bit of a bonus for the sole proprietor. Okay, Amy, I agree. Okay, yeah, I know. Yeah, we're just giving the banks what they want. We're just trying to do what we can to get get our loans forgiven, Okay. Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Benjamin. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Thanks for checking in. Like the video if you can. All right, what other questions do we have? Should we talk about taxability? Is that something we should probably touch on? I'm going to do a video on taxability, but not everybody watches the lives afterwards. Maybe if I mentioned that I had a small saber-toothed tiger come through, that maybe people would watch the video. I'm hoping for the same for nonprofits on PPP not becoming income. Bob, I don't think it's never going to become income for nonprofits, but I don't know about the deductibility of those expenses. I feel like they would be treated the same way as for-profit entities in that. So that's a little bit of a challenge. All right, so let's talk a little bit about taxability of the PPP, because there's been a lot of confusion, and people have said, well, if I just don't apply for forgiveness this year, then it's not going to affect my 2020 taxes, and that's actually not true. So we need to talk about that. Taxability of the loan is that if you get the amounts forgiven, then those expenses cannot be deducted on your taxes. But we have a timing issue, right? So we have a timing issue of 2020 is ending. Some people haven't applied for forgiveness. Some people haven't even looked at whether or not they will be able to get any forgiveness. And then they might not file their taxes until April. They might not file their taxes until September or October of 2021. So when do we take the tax deduction? Do we take it in 2021? Do we take it, or the non-deduction, essentially, the anti-deduction? When do we put this tax effect of the PPP money in? And basically what it's coming down to is that the IRS has said, if you believe that there's a reasonable assumption, and I should look up their exact words. Hey babe, I'm on a call. I'm actually on YouTube Live right now. Oh, okay. Can you go finish your school? Okay, then go play. All right, let's close the door. Maybe I should lock the door next time. Yeah, no, working parents, this is what it is. So, and then I lost my stream of thought. So the IRS has basically said that if it is reasonable, or if you believe that if you believe that your loan will be forgiven, even if you just have a reasonable assumption that it will be forgiven, then you should essentially plan that those amounts should be forgiven and take them off of your taxable or your deductible expenses in 2020. So just to give you like numbers, okay? Let's say you had $300,000 in, and I'm gonna go through the calculator again. Let's say you had $400,000 in payroll expenses and your PPP loan was $100,000. And you ended up using all $100,000 on payroll costs. If you use all $100,000 on payroll costs, even if you are not going to apply for forgiveness until 2021, but you know you used it for payroll costs and you're like, yeah, I legitimately did all the right things. I know that I'm going to get this loan forgiven because I did all the right things. Or even like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get all the loan forgiven because I think I did all the right things. If you think that you are going to get forgiveness of your loan, you need to back out those expenses from your deductible expenses on your taxes in 2020. Okay, so if you had $400,000 of payroll, you're going to go ahead and back out that $100,000, and you're going to have $300,000 showing in your payroll expenses. Okay, for the year. So what that's going to do is it's going to up your profitability in 2020. And so this is why we need to be talking about this right now, because everybody needs to be doing kind of at least a back of the napkin calculation to figure out whether or not they think they're going to get some of their loan forgiven. We need to do this calculation right now, because if you have a bigger tax liability, you need to be paying estimated taxes on that money, or on your, whatever taxes are due before January 15th of 2021, because that's the Q4 estimated tax deadline. You can get penalties if you haven't paid enough estimated taxes in. So it's just something to think about, you guys. And I'm not pushing people to try to apply for forgiveness before the end of the year, but I am going to be pushing people to at least do the calculation before the end of the year, so that we can kind of get an idea of, are you going to owe more taxes or are you not? Okay. Any questions about taxability? Hey, Amanda. Yeah, that's my little my little distraction. We've talked about having a system, so like if there's something on the door, you can't come in, but it is what it is. Everybody understands at this point, I think, that children aren't around. But any questions? I'm not going to keep this on live if nobody's got any questions. Watch out for another video for taxes. And then if anybody has any things that are still unclear and you have any ideas of what you'd like to learn about, put it in the comments. And really, even if there's anything outside of PPP, I mean, I'm all the time trying to think about what we can talk about going forward. I did send out an email today, so if you aren't on the, well, probably anybody on the live today is probably on my email list, but I sent out an email today, and at the bottom, it had some housekeeping stuff just at the end of the year. This is a perfect time to kind of just make sure your sort of financial house is in order. I like to do a review, make sure all your 1099 contractors are all up to date with their W-9s. Make sure you have a W-9 so you have their tax ID number and their current address. Make sure employees have all of their information up to date. Like if you have a system like Gusto where they can just log in and make sure that their current address is in there, because they're going to get W-2s and stuff sent out to their home address, and you don't want it to go to an old house. That's kind of a nightmare to try to track that stuff down. Now's a really good time to just double check with your bookkeeper, check in with your CPA, see if you need to make any estimated tax payments before the end of the year. And then honestly, right now, if you're thinking about changing payroll providers, now's the time to do it. Do it before you get halfway into the new year. Did your payroll provider help you out during the PPP process? If not, and you're upset with them or you're considering changing, now is really a good time. And it does usually take a couple weeks to make a conversion. So, you know, you want to keep that in mind if you're kind of planning for something new. All right, Amy has an FTE question when using the 3508 EZ form. Can you ignore reductions in an FTE for an employee who quit? So I think what you're asking, Amy, is on that second, I think I have the EZ form right here. I do. Yeah, so see, this is why I have my files, because I have to reference these things all the time. The borrower did not reduce the number of employees or average paid hours of employees between January 1 and the end of the covered period. I think this is the certification you're trying to check the box for. So you're probably asking, what if you didn't reduce the number of employees, but employees left voluntarily? If that's the case, let's see. If that's the case, this is how I'm reading it. The borrower did not reduce. That means that you did not take the action as the borrower to let that person go. So my interpretation of this has been, if there's a voluntary, because we already have FTE exemptions in the, you know, from the 3508, we know that if they voluntarily leave, that's an exemption. So my recommendation would say, yeah, I actually do think that you can call this you can still check this box with certainty because you did not do the leaving. Now, what I would say to that is make sure you have that clearly documented, Amy, because if they quit, save whatever documentation it was that they made that determination and that it was not your choice to let them go, that they did that. So if you don't have documentation directly from that employee telling you that message, I would go back and try to get that from them, honestly. If you can't, for whatever reason, just clearly document when they left, why they left, how they left, as much as you possibly can. Just write a note to the file. That's not something you have to turn in for the bank, but you absolutely, if you get audited, you will need to prove that, okay? So yeah, so that, okay, that's good. Tony asked, how do I get on the email list? I will put that in the description if I can find it super quick here. I know there's like a quick link. How about this, Tony? If you go to my website, there's like a little pop-up that happens that says subscribe to our email list, and it gives you like a freebie to, I don't know what we have up there right now. It might be our PPP forgiveness thing. What do we have as our freebie right now? Maybe I should look at that. But if you get on there, you can just pop your name and email address into the form, and then you'll be on the email list. So should be pretty straightforward. Also, if you go to browse our learning resources, that will also be there. Well, if there's no other questions, I think I'm going to wrap up. I'll give it another second. Anybody want to type in a last question? Oh yeah, Tony, so when you go to the website, there's a little pop-up and it says, are you looking for PPP and EIDL information? And you can just pop your name and email in there, and then that will get you on the email list. Yeah, awesome. Okay. Anything else? The mailman is outside, and I know what's about to happen. My dog's about to bark. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for joining. All right, you guys. Well, you know what? If the lives are helpful, I will keep doing them. So if If you guys are still here, if you could just make sure you give the video a thumbs up, helps me out a lot. And then the comments are always helpful. And then, yeah, maybe we'll keep doing a live every week or every other week through the holidays. I'm going to take probably about 2 weeks off. I'm going to still be posting some videos, but I might not do any lives during that time. I'm also kind of considering a sort of PPP forgiveness workshop, kind of something I'm noodling around in my brain. So if that sounds interesting, definitely watch out for that on the email list. Trying to just kind of think about the best way to deliver that at like a low cost for everybody. So thinking through that, I really just want to make sure that people get the support that they need in kind of a timely manner too. So, all right, well, bye everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and take care of yourselves and watch out for your mental health, because that's just important, just as important, even more important than our physical health sometimes, especially during these times. So yeah, I will keep an eye out. Oh, and there's my dog. All right, bye everyone.